Welcome to this SurfRay sponsored webcast on an introduction to SharePoint 2013 search. I hope for some of you this is actually maybe the first time you'll be introduced to the functionality within SharePoint 2013 search. We have at SurfRay compiled a bunch of information and tried to push that out as fast as possible all about the platform. But my goal here is really to give you the high-level details on everything around this subject. I'm not going to be able to go through everything because the presentation would just be far too long. But for anybody that's flipped through SurfRay webcasts before, you know that we generally try and do these every couple of weeks. And from here on forward, I'll focus on specific areas within SharePoint search in future webcasts. So use this kind of as a high-level overview. Also, as we're going through, please send over questions via chat. We'd love this to be very QA-oriented. At the end, we'll open up and answer any questions that you have. Again, because I'm only able to go through this for a high level, there's probably some specific things that you want to know that I won't touch on without you asking the question. So make sure that you have those lined up. I won't monitor those chat questions during the presentation, but we'll make sure to address them afterwards. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Josh Noble. I'm a senior search consultant with SurfRay, and my colleague here that's on the call with us, Robert Piddock, has been working in the search area for probably over a decade, almost a decade and a half at this point. Has written a couple books all about SharePoint and FAST, and kind of my partner in crime in building out these environments. So diving into our content, we've kind of broken this out into various different agenda items, and again, I won't go into every one of these in huge amounts of detail. The slides actually probably have more detail than that, but we'll look at the crawler side's improvements, the query side improvements, and then finally the user side improvements to SharePoint 2013. As everybody I'm sure suspects, it's quite a big push forward in Microsoft's search platform offering. One of kind of the interesting items to get out of the way up front, there is no longer a FAST SKU in SharePoint 2013. Everything's been consolidated into SharePoint Search. So no worrying about that extra SKU there. And you'll notice that a lot of the FAST functionality, not all of it, but a lot of that FAST functionality has been built into SharePoint 2013 natively. So things like the Office Web Apps preview has been integrated in. Some of the extraction concepts, some of the ways of federating out content sources have all been integrated in here. And I'll try and go through those in a couple areas. There's certain things, though, like the fast web crawlers, JVDC connectors, things like that have not been integrated in. So if you have questions about how that fits into your architecture long term, feel free to fire those over. So I'll try and avoid being in this PowerPoint too much. You have this available to you. What I really want to do is jump right into my environment. So let me do that. And is everybody able to see my screen? Robert, can you see this screen okay?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so starting on the crawler side improvements, maybe I'll just jump over to Central Admin to begin with, and given the area that Robert and I kind of live in, the search service application here. You'll notice that the architecture Central Admin looks very similar to what you find in SharePoint 2010. There are a little bit differences on the terminology that you'll see. Instead of being called the manage metadata, you'll see the search schema here. It's kind of a term that you'll see is replaced for your managed your metadata and your properties. You'll notice here, though, interacting with all of this is the exact same. You have your managed properties and your crawled properties. A lot of the UI there is very, very similar to what you had already. So kind of going through some of the interesting things on the back-end improvements of SharePoint 2013. First, Microsoft has really tried to simplify a lot of things. The biggest thing that you'll notice is that you don't have to set up a PDFI filter anymore. natively out of the box, SharePoint 2013 will be able to index PDFs. Now, that's not to say that if you have something like a Foxed Eye filter that there's not a benefit to that, because those Foxed Eye filters do extract some additional metadata that are a little faster, things like that. You can also use and build additional eye filters, but at least you don't have to do that just to get PDF index out of the box. Federated locations and search scopes have been consolidated into what is now called result sources. So you can still do federated searches out to open search compliant search engines, and you can consolidate a number of different content sources together. But this, in the search scopes, kind of give a little logical separation between the search index and allow you to predefine some queries. And we'll look at the front end on how query rules have now been introduced into SharePoint 2013, and it'll kind of make sense on why these result sources have been changed around just a little bit. One of the cool things about result sources as well is that you'll find the new version of Exchange and the new version of Office actually uses the same search engine that you find in SharePoint. So Exchange can now be set up as a result source and passed over a federated query. So in SharePoint 2010, you could index public Exchange folders. You can still only index public Exchange folders with SharePoint in 2013, but now you can set up Exchange as a federated content source. And what that means for you is you can actually set up a web part that allows you to search your personal Exchange box from SharePoint. So you won't just search everybody's, you'll be able to search just your own. But the meaningful part there is Exchange is actually doing it all at that point. SharePoint is just able to consume that federated content source. And without getting into the back end in too much detail, because that's a concept probably for a whole presentation, you will notice that SharePoint 2013 is significantly more scalable than what you found in out-of-the-box SharePoint 2010. It's more along the lines of what you find with fast scalability. Now, that comes with the caveat. It does take, depending on what metrics you're looking at, probably about 4 times the hardware to handle. Microsoft has published all sorts of documents on the new search architecture that you can check out, but do expect that hardware is going to be a little bit more demanding. Current documentation on from Microsoft is showing environments that are indexing up to about 100 million documents, which is similar to what you found in SharePoint 2010. The difference is here you can scale it a little bit easier and actually crawl that without taking a month. So you probably can index more than 100 million items. Just haven't been able to personally test that and haven't seen a lot of documentation around that. I suspect that's what you find in the past. I'm going to skip over analytics reports. I just simply don't have a whole lot in this environment that I can show you here because there hasn't been a lot of people using it, but you do have a lot of additional analytics that you'll be able to find. Crawl health reports would be one of the big ones. But again, analytics, we'll make sure to do a presentation all about analytics if you're interested. On your search schema and your managed properties, you'll notice some new granularities, some new changes have been applied here. I'll try and show you that one of these, say author, for example. Now this is a default property that you would find right out of the box. And you'll notice that now with your search schema, you can actually define a little bit more about the characteristics of this property. So you can say if it's just searchable or not searchable in the first place. You can say if it's able to be used in a search query. So if you want to actually fire off a property query for author equals Josh Nova, I can define whether that's possible or not off of this property. I can set whether it's retrievable or not, and that'll come into play later when we look at display templates. More or less, if it's retrievable, you'll be able to use that property integrated in and show it in a display template in your search result set. You can set if it's refinable. Jump down here. So it'll actually, you can set whether or not there's a active search refiner that can be built off of this particular property. Multiple values, very similar to what you found in SharePoint 2010. A couple other different configuration options here. But the big point of these configuration options now is that the more checks that you put on there, the more strain it's going to put on the environment. So you have actually a little more, and then vice versa. So you have a little bit more control over that. If you don't need all 150, 200 properties in your environment to be retrievable and make refiners and be queryable, you just don't check all those boxes, and your index times are going to improve, your query times are going to improve, because SharePoint doesn't have to look at every one of those properties every time. So I won't go into that in much more detail, other than actually this is probably something interesting to point out. You can now do entity extraction when you're searching for, when you're analyzing these documents. This is a concept that was introduced into FAST. Now, entity extraction right off the bat can be done for a company, but you actually build custom entity extractors. This is really great for organizations that have a lot of content, but not a whole lot of metadata already in place. So this will allow you to actually grab out certain types of metadata. Again, subject for a whole great presentation on how to extract properties out of documents. So I'll leave the crawler side alone at this point, and we'll jump over to the query side improvement, because it's probably the back end of this point. So here's the front end of my SharePoint search environment. And let's dive into the Search Center. So I have a little content here about Robert's favorite hobby, which is working with bees. Robert, what's the word for that? I don't know. Wait a second here. You get this message a whole lot in SharePoint 2013. Working on it. All right. So this is our default search center in SharePoint 2013. You'll notice a little bit of changes right off the back. First off, starting with the query side, everything to do with the query box up top. First off, you can build out search dictionaries that link into your managed metadata services. Very cool to be able to actually push out dictionary results, well, synonyms, things like that, based off of the managed metadata services. Query syntax is a little bit more advanced now. You can use query syntax a bit more like FAST, where if you need to build very advanced queries, such as give me everything that has fees and also has author equals Josh Noble and file type equals PDF, you can build those more advanced queries in this query box. I don't have it shown right here, but one of the cool things is that you're going to love us complaints about this in 2010. Your query will actually carry over when you jump between the advanced search page and the simple search page in SharePoint 2013. That also means that if you build out a really advanced search query in the advanced search page, it's going to pump back into the search box. One of the coolest things that you'll see right off the back is something that was built off of a concept introduced in SharePoint 2010, and that's the ability to do query suggestions. So in SharePoint 2010, you had query suggestions based off of the experiences of everybody in your farm. Now things are a little bit more granular. You can get query suggestions based off of other people, but you can also get specialized query suggestions based off of your personal experiences. And again, I don't have a whole lot that's been driven in here, but you'll notice here that SharePoint's actually recognizing, okay, what documents has Josh clicked on in the past? And maybe these are the documents that you're looking for again. So there's actually two types of query suggestions. One are going to be the query suggestions that come down from the query box right here, and I can click on past activity or get personal activity here. I can also see personal favorites, and this is done after you run a query. Now those are very similar to what we found here in the query box. Exactly. But now I have a nice little collection of personal favorites right up top. It kind of acts as a personal best bet that's generated over time. Other query side improvements. The big change is that now we have what are called result types. So this is going to be probably one of the biggest areas that you see customizations in SharePoint 2013. Every one of these results can be set up as different result types. So SharePoint can actually recognize, okay, this is a Word file. I need to display Word files in this way. I need to display these types of properties. I need to do these things with Word files. And conversely, I recognize this is a web page. I need to display that a little bit different. So you can now build all sorts of different result types. I'll just show you where you can do that real quick. So maybe this makes a bit more sense in the grand scheme of things. So we're going to go to Site Settings. Oh, actually, I'm just going to show you the query rules here. These build into result type. So you can go out and define all sorts of different result types. You can also then build query rules off of them. So I could build a result type for, say, Adobe PDF right here. And then I can build what's called a query rule. And this is, again, a new feature introduced into SharePoint 2013. So with a query rule, I can say, okay, anything that matches this result type, PDF, I need to fire off some sort of action on it, whether that's redirecting people to different types of content, whether it's promoting the ranking of an item, all sorts of different things that you're able to do to fire off different types of actions off of results. Again, whole presentation topic all on its own. I'm trying to race through things here because I know we're already going 18 minutes or so into it, and I haven't gotten all the way to the UI side of things. Oh, result types right there. That's what I was going to show you right off the bat. So different types of result types. Again, we look at PDF. Anything that matches the file type PDF, I need to display this particular template. Now these display templates, I don't have anything custom here that I can show you, but the display templates essentially allow you to define, okay, I want to show this document type. Whenever I return a PDF, I want to show this document title, I want to show this metadata, I want to display these types of icons. And you can actually build those display templates in any HTML designer. So whether that's Dreamweaver, Notepad, you name it, you can build out visual HTML display templates and change those around for different file types. Let's go back to my search center here. You'll notice that out of the box you do have a couple different tabs. Before you had all sites and you had people. Now you actually have search tabs for videos and reports. I don't believe in videos in the site, so I can't really show you anything there. But those are new scopes that you're able to see with search tabs right off the bat. And finally, talking about the UI side of things, the user experience, what's been updated there. Well, SharePoint 2010 introduced the concept of search refiners. Those have now gotten a bit of a visual overhaul in SharePoint 2013. Functionally, they work very, very similar. The difference is now you can apply what we looked at, those display templates. So here for last modified date, for example, I have a display template that allows to show a date range. Now, unfortunately, in this particular build, that display template has a little bit of an issue. I believe it's stick to the build that we have on the other back there. But you're able to work with these various different display templates to interact with refiners in a little different way. You don't have to write XML to build custom refiners anymore. You can also, again, display these in a bit more kind of, let's say, professional way. The refiners now also, you can expose counts. Refiners can also be set to be deep refiners, which is what you found in FAST. So you have the ability to analyze your entire document set, not just the first 500 like you saw in base SharePoint 2010. Now keep in mind, just like FAST, if you're going to do that, if you're going to analyze deep refiners, if you're going to demonstrate, display all the possible refiners for a particular search query, that's going to put a lot more of a load on your server than if you're analyzing only just, say, the first 500 results. So there's a lot that you're going to have to consider around the lines of how do we build out this functionality based off of the architecture that we have in our environment. Microsoft has done a lot to open this up, but at the same time, when you open up what you're able to do with SharePoint, you open up also a lot of ways to potentially strain SharePoint. So there's going to be a lot more considerations that you'll have to go through in 2013 because there's additional functionality there. One of the things that's been catching probably the most attention is the floating preview pane. You've seen me probably cover over this a couple times. This is a new preview functionality that's been introduced into standard SharePoint, but anybody that has FAST will actually notice this is really similar to what you found in FAST search for SharePoint 2010. It is Office Web Apps-based preview. So this will only work off of docx, or document file types, and PowerPoint file types. It's been a bit expanded over the FAST version, just in that now you are able to display your documents off in the side pane, and for Word documents, you're able to actually read the whole document. Before in FAST, you were only able to see the first page of a Word document, but you could see the full PowerPoint document. You're not getting anything like hit highlighting or anything like that. You're not able to do this preview off of things like PDF, but this is really nice that it's been expanded to work for standard SharePoint deployments, not just your enterprise deployments. You notice some additional functionality here. I can actually click on full screen, and Office Web Apps will go and allow me to view my document in this full screen browser. And this essentially skips the step of having to download the document to your own personal computer. Now, your browser, you are going to have to analyze that document in real time. Your browser's doing some work there and holding that document in cache for you. So this is not just coming back instantly. For bigger documents, you are going to need to wait for that content to come back. Let's see if I can find something that's a little bit bigger so we can look at size time on this PowerPoint. We've got 40 slides on it. Here's my text. So again, here with PowerPoint, I'm able to pull up a full PowerPoint preview, and I can go through various different pages of the document. I'm just clicking right up my keyboard right now. But anyway, you get the point. You're able to pull up into a second browser and view that PowerPoint document. Again, just like the Word document, I'm able to go through the various different pages of the document by grabbing and scanning through them. This floating info pane also provides a little bit more information. You could expose various different properties here. You'll notice that you're able to do some actions off of your various different content result types, just like you're able to do in document libraries. These are a little locked down right off the back, but I see a potential to expand those actions with custom actions there. Lots of other kind of little user interface improvements. Because we're going over time, I'll leave you with a PowerPoint document that we sent over right at the beginning to be able to see some additional information on some of those user interface improvements. But those are going to be the really big highlights: personal favorites, extended refiners, and that floating information pane that you're able to see off of PowerPoint and Word files. Talking a little bit just briefly on what's kind of not been addressed quite yet in SharePoint 2013, and give you the disclaimer again. This is the preview build. SharePoint 2013 isn't released yet. Microsoft has plenty of time to add additional functionality in here, so you'll probably see some things change by the time that SharePoint 2013 is out for purchase. It's going to be quite so we're not seeing a lot of additional features around advanced search. You'll notice that your saved searches, alerts, RSS feeds, there's no features around that. I didn't just delete that web part. It's not here at all. Preview has a little bit of setbacks just because it doesn't work for anything other than the document file types, the PDFs and the Word files. I mean, PowerPoints and Word files, so no PDFs or anything like that. And the other thing around Preview is because it requires Office web apps, that's a pretty significant additional infrastructure you're going to have to deploy. Robert has posted a blog all about how to install the Office web apps server, but it is a separate server you need to install, separate SKU there. But that's what serves up this preview capability. So this is not kind of your lightweight preview for anybody that's worked with Ontology. So very, very, very different, very similar to what you find in practice. Give search result actions beyond what you find right out of the box. These are not easily configurable to add additional, say, workflows and things like that off of there. So I see that kind of being an area for improvement. And yeah, so check out that PowerPoint document. We go through some various different limitations there, but I don't want to just hammer on those for very long. What I'd really like to do is open it up to questions. I see that there's a couple chats that have started going on here. But are there any questions that anybody happens to have that Robert and I can address? I wish I looked at the chat a little earlier. Apparently my browser is a little bit small, so I'll zoom in here a little bit. It's just kind of the design of SharePoint 2013, that white space over on the right-hand side of the current build. My assumption is that kind of has to do a lot with tablets and things like that. So I'll wait here. Are there any sort of questions anybody has? That or I've just lost everybody by now. Robert, are there things that you want to chime in on? Again, I was keeping this fairly high level and run through. I know we'll go through different things in further detail in future presentations, but are there things that I didn't touch on that everybody's just got to know right off the bat?
I think you're pretty thorough. I mean, just reiterate a couple of the cooler things with SharePoint 2013 search that are really going to be useful are the query rules and, of course, the result sources. So you can do a lot on both ends, both the crawling end and on the front end, in order to get your search working a lot better. There are a few things that I kind of wonder if there'll be noise or if people will, just be frustrated with them, like the personal favorites and things like that. Kind of social feature looks cool, but we'll see. Time will tell whether that's actually going to be useful for people. But being able to set up query rules so that we can take some kind of query, we'll look into the analytics that are provided and take some kind of a term that people are commonly searching for, which is not bringing back what they're looking for, and make that a better query to bring back things that you wanted. So, for example, if people are searching for a particular project number, but they're not getting back the project they're looking for because that project number also needs an additional query or an additional term to get back the right kind of document, we can just add that to a query rule and bring back the right stuff. Of course, it's going to require some manual intervention, but it'll be a toolbox that will let search work a lot better, and let administrators do something about the search. Of course, the new layout is a little bit different as well. I think, initially people are going to have some adoption issues, but people will get used to the new look and feel. I think the refiners are something, the visual refiners are something that people are already talking about, already looking for. So it's very nice to be able to have those.
Yeah, my feedback kind of on the look and feel side of things is actually not so much an adoption thing for the users as it is going to be the administrator. The first time I opened up that new Windows Server view that we have on the other environment, it took me a little while to kind of figure out where everything was located, because it's just completely revamped over the old look and feel, that kind of Metro style. I'm not able to show that here. You'll see it in all our future webcasts. I can't believe we don't have any questions.
Generally, people ask me about transitions, that people are on 2010 now, and they're looking for more functionality. There was a big question a question I get all the time is, should we go to fast? What's going to happen? Should we wait for SP 2013, or should we go to fast? And the answer for that really hasn't changed a lot, because the reasons why you would use fast are actually often very special, and the reason why people are driven to fast by Microsoft are not necessarily the reasons or good reasons to go to fast. For example, if you just want the preview, then it's not really a reason to go to fast, because fast strengths are with indexing huge amounts of content and with scalability. So I think probably a better way to look at it is to take a business perspective and say, what are our key requirements? And if it's something like preview, look at something like Autolica, a third-party product to do that. If it's scalability, then you have to decide whether you can wait for SP15, because it will have that kind of fast scalability. There are still a couple of things that won't be in SP 2013, but that are in fast, but then there's a risk to get into fast now when there's going to be a new product coming out. So, for example, you mentioned earlier, Josh, there's no web crawler no special web crawler, there's no fast web crawler in SP 2013, and there's no JDBC connector. But we've got the BCS, so the JDBC connector should not be a big issue, except for people who are doing some kind of transition. Now, the web crawler, that's, like I said, it's going to be a really business decision. Do I have stuff that I need a really customized web crawler to do? And then maybe looking at fast or some other product is the way to go in that case, because the web crawler is traditionally not very strong in SharePoint, so not very configurable, let's say. So I think it will really have to be a decision on what your business needs are, but definitely SharePoint 2013 is a huge improvement, and it's a great tool. No other questions appearing?
Yeah, Ray has a question. He wanted to ask through audio, not through text here. Hey, Derek, are you able to unmute Ray? Doesn't look like I have that option. Oh, hey, Ray, I think we can probably hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, we can hear you.
I wanted to ask a couple of questions. First of all, I'd like to know what ethical farm topologies that you set up, and what kind of memory is on your central admin server. And the third question is, has the index server role changed in 2013 and 2010? Moving to
Okay, so I got probably more along your lines, Robert. Does the index server role change? What sort of topology are we looking at? And in the hardware consumption for 2013. Ray, did I kind of summarize that right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm glad you repeated that, because I couldn't understand what you said. Okay, so server, all of this information, luckily, has already been released by Microsoft, so you can have a look at the topology. Topology is much more similar to what we had with SharePoint 2010. So you can have index partitions and a number of servers. The advantage is we kind of mix the fast topology with the SharePoint topology, but the advantage is that you can have huge scalability. Now, so far, and of course, you can also put those roles out onto different machines. So you can have an index server or a number of index servers just doing indexing roles, and then you can have query servers doing query roles. I will look up the article, the topology article from Microsoft's website, and post it to either chat or send it directly to you, so you can get kind of a overview. There's a topology article, and there's also a schema, so you can have a look at the SharePoint 2013 topology for search. So far as the server requirements go, I'm not 100% sure what the the suggested requirements are. But SharePoint 2013 base requirements, you probably heard this out there, some of the MVPs are moaning a bit about it, are really a lot higher than what we've got with 2010, which means you're going to need more RAM in the machine. What that means for search is really dependent on what kind of search role you've got. Now, Microsoft is probably just going to assume that everybody starts with 24 or 32 gigs of RAM in every machine, and then all there'll be smiles all around the world. But you're going to have to think about where, if resources are an issue, of course, where you need to put that. And if you're going to do something like crawling, you want to scale up. So you want to add more RAM and faster drives to do crawling. But if you want to do queries, then having more query servers is going to improve your performance than just adding more RAM as a general rule.
Yeah, and I just posted a couple different guides Microsoft has put together on the topology, and so you'll notice most of your architecture looks very similar to what you found in the architecture of SharePoint 2010. It just requires more hardware, but consequently, you require more hardware. If you're getting better performance, you're going to need better hardware.
I also posted a link to the topology diagrams that I was mentioning. There's a Visio document and a PDF. Open that up and see what their kind of suggestions are for different sizes of farms, and also scaling consideration and hardware requirements and things like that too.
Yeah, and we'll continue to post a lot more information about SharePoint 2013 as the days go by here. If you want to just keep an eye out for that information, if you just go to SurfRay.com, our latest blog posts are always found right here. So Robert has actually posted yesterday a post all about Office Web Apps Server and how to get that up and running, which can be a little bit complicated. So check out information there as well. What other questions do we have? No questions, but lots of people watching.
Yeah, I'll ask you another question.
Okay.
Anyway, where do you see the role of an IT department in relation to the library department? Because the library department in my company has a lot of knowledge of topology and the usage of metadata, whereas the IT department understands more infrastructure of SharePoint search and how to set it up. And what I'm looking to achieve is a nice collaboration, synergy between the two departments, trying to bridge the two of them so that we can truly have a better form of search. Have you encountered this type of challenge before? Or have you talked about it?
Yeah, this is a big one that I work with all the time across every version of SharePoint. It's kind of bridging that gap between the tech side of things and the business side of things, because it comes down to one of the most basic things is, the IT guys go and say, okay, every time you upload a document, you need to add these 4 pieces of metadata to the document, or these 20 pieces of metadata to the document. And your users conversely say, why am I wasting my time doing this? I don't understand what the point of this is. And so that's a problem that's not really solved just by technology. I mean, that's really getting people in the room and kind of doing some requirement gathering and bridging the minds. And a lot of times for companies, that means bringing in kind of somebody that can consult on that and do workshops and get people in the room together to do requirement planning and make sure that the right questions are being asked by the IT team, and that the user groups also really understand what they're asking out of IT. That's something I've done on several locations, several times, and I have some great people that I can recommend that can help with those sort of things. We have some various webcasts that we've posted as well on requirement gathering. for SharePoint and kind of what questions to ask your users. One of the biggest examples of that would be, okay, from a tech perspective, we know we can make best bets, but are we really making the right best bets for our users? Are we just wasting our time? What best bets would really benefit our users, and how do we ask them the right questions to get that information? Just asking them, do you like search? Did you find what you were looking for? Isn't really getting IT or the business users anywhere. So we have a great presentation all about that I can share. We did that with Michael Pisarek, who has a lot of experience in that area. Now, on the tech side of things, Microsoft has done one really big thing to help with that in SharePoint 2013, and that's better integration with the managed metadata services. You mentioned librarians, for example. Librarians probably understand taxonomies better than anybody else, maybe the biologists out there. But building out the managed metadata services in SharePoint 2010 was a little bit restrictive, not necessarily on the content management side of things, but what you could do with it in search. Now you can expose more of you can build search refiners off of managed metadata properties, for example, things that are being fed off of the term store. You could execute query rules and build display templates off of that content. So being able to actually do something a bit more with content fed from the managed metadata services would be a big step forward. A very long response to that question.
I'd like to append a comment to that as well, because one of the big issues that I've seen, and this is really a big issue, it's an interesting question actually, and it's a huge question, because their search is one of the holes in governance in SharePoint that we see, because nobody really considers much about search except for that it's just there. And I think, from my view, and this is a big issue with governance all across SharePoint, is a matter of ownership. Because generally people, like you said, IT does this and the business people do this, and then they're like complaining whose responsibility is to do this and that. And what it really comes down to is having somebody who has to take responsibility for the ownership of the entire process. And maybe you have your IT people, manage the SharePoint stuff, and the business people manage the, adding the rules and stuff. But somebody has to say, this is my responsibility to make sure it's all working together. And you get this game in a lot of organizations, kind of a hot potato game. Like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. And that's really where things like, especially search, fail, because nobody wants to take, universal ownership over the tool, and also the business processes and the business requirements behind the tool. So, not really a technical question, but yeah, it's a big issue.
So, anyway, again, appreciate everybody joining, and hope to see you soon for a future webcast.